Hello, I'm Mitchell Ryan Dursey, and here is the best and worst movies I saw for the first time in 2019. Oh boy, we got a very interesting year for movies, and I overall quite enjoyed it. But let's see what made the list. Well, several lists actually. This year, I watched a total of 75 films for the very first time. And about 29 of them were newer releases that were released this year. And about 46 of them were released in the past. So, how I usually go through this list is basically I start off with the ones that I saw for the first time this year that wasn't released in 2019, and then I make my way downtown all the way to the current year movies, and that's how I do my list. So feel free to tell me what you like, what you dislike, blah blah blah. This is just my opinion. So without further ado, let's get started. Starting off with the top 5 worst movies that I saw in 2019 for the first time that was not released in 2019. Number 5, I have to give it to The Exorcist II, The Heretic. The reason it didn't place lower on my list is I felt that it was kind of interesting where they went with it, and it just visually was done well enough that the movie still sticks out in my mind. I remember not enjoying the movie that much at all, but I felt like there was just enough special about The Exorcist II, The Heretic, that I felt it didn't deserve lower on the list, but still ended up on the list. Number 4, I had to give it to Predator 2. Very interesting where the Predator series went, but the second one, it did a lot of odd choices, especially in the whole ending and all that. Like, there was enough that saved it from going lower on the list, but still pretty bad, I felt. Number 3, I gave to The House on Haunted Hill, the remake. 90s, the one with Jeffrey Rush. Though it was somewhat creative with some things, this overall. Number 2, I had to give to Face Off, the 1970 hockey one, made in Canada. Really, the only good thing about Face Off, this movie, I felt, is the amount of hockey cameos, and I mean, they're filmed with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and you actually see footage of, legends playing on the ice. That's really the only reason to see this movie. By the end of it, it felt like it was a PSA on drugs and how bad they are and whatnot, so it's like, that's why it's number 2. Anyways, the number 1 worst movie I saw for the first time in 2019 that was not released in 2019, I had to give to Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. I mean, ignoring the fact that the first almost hour of the film is a recap of the first movie, bit by bit, ignoring that, when the second movie actually started, I didn't even think it knew what to do with itself. It didn't even have anything to do with Christmas until like near the end again, and it's like last 10-15 minutes of the film, not even, and it's like it was not worth it to sit for the recap of the first movie, especially if you're watching it back to back, because I just watched the first one and then I go into the second one and it starts recapping for the first almost hour of the film. Oh, so bad. Honorable mentions for bad movies that were not released in 2019 that I saw for the first time in 2019. I will give an honorable mention to Legend of the Lost. Now for the top 10 best movies I saw for the first time in 2019 that was not released in 2019. I'll start off with number 10. I gave to Predator, the very first one, because it was a good movie, and I can now see where those memes came from. Get to the chopper! I thought it was well done, and I was actually kind of surprised where the movie ended up. And once it did, I was like, oh, this is going to be one of those type of movies. And I just thought it was kind of neat that, and it's easy to see why the Predator became a franchise when this movie was the first one. Number 9, I gave to Straw Dogs. I honestly think was an extremely well done film that sort of reminded me of Deliverance, but instead of out in the sort of wilderness, it was more of a small town vibe, and it just in a more isolated part of the country. It's like it just, I felt it was an extremely well done film and very unsettling. Number 8, I gave to Unbreakable, the M. Night Shyamalan film. Granted, I saw Split first of that trilogy, going back and watching Unbreakable before seeing Glass in theaters. I definitely see why Unbreakable was such a, not, I guess, underrated film. I'm not sure. I wasn't really old enough to realize movies back in, was it 2000s? But I just felt overall that I could see why it's considered such a good M. Night Shyamalan film. I just kind of wish I saw this before I saw Split, because that would have made Split 10 times more impactful. Number 7 is Carnival of Souls, which to me I thought was really cool, and it kind of reminded me of a really extended version of a Twilight Zone episode. And plus that really unique organ soundtrack just sticks in your head. Oh man. Number 6 is Life Force, which I'm gonna admit I didn't really like the first whole scene bit in space. I was kind of like, well, I don't think this movie's gonna end up being good. And then, you know, slowly throughout the film, by the end of it, I was just like, wow, this is actually a really good film. And I was surprised where it went and how crazy sort of the ending, near the ending it got. And so I had to give it to number 6. Number 5, a movie that I didn't think would make any of my lists. Frankenstein Created Women. I was like, why does this movie have a special Scream Factory Collector's Edition? I watched it and I was like, wow, that was actually a really good film. I really liked the story. It was totally unexpected what I expected of a movie with Frankenstein in the title. I had to give it to number 5. Number 4 goes to Now You See Me. I finally got around to watching Now You See Me and Now You See Me 2, and I gotta say, Now You See Me 1 was pretty damn good. I can see why it was such a big hit when it came out. Number 3, I give to The Third Man. Such a great, underrated classic of a movie, I guess. I don't know if is it underrated? I don't know, but I loved every minute of The Third Man. Such a unique film. Number 2, I gave to The Exorcist 3. Because I knew going into it that I've heard it was better than the second one. But I didn't think it was that good. I really loved it, and I thought it's literally, I think it's the best of the Okay, well, technically the first one was made better, but the third one has got to be my favorite of the Exorcist franchise, and I just love the whole story within. Number one of the best movie I saw for the first time in 2019 that was not released in 2019, I had to give to a little cult classic of a horror film, House. The 1977 question mark? Where is it? House, where are you? This one. 1977, I got it right. A crazy movie from start to finish. So weird, so wonderful. To even mention some of the crazy moments that happen in this film, I feel is spoiler enough. But if you want to see a horror film that doesn't take itself seriously, but takes it seriously enough in the sense of it feels like it just goes all out with whatever it is. It's horrific, terrorific comedy. I don't know what to sort of classify this film. Like, it was easily my favorite horror film of the year, and I felt it was just really good. Time for the honorable mention of the best movies I saw for the first time in 2019 that was not released in 2019. Ah, hell. Honorable mention I'll give to the Blue Max. Honorable mention, Candyman. Might be a bit controversial putting this on the list, but I wanted to honorably mention Cannibal Holocaust. Honorable mention, It Follows. Here we are. The top 5 worst movies in 2019 that was released in 2019. Number 5 is Cold Pursuit with Liam Neeson. I actually really enjoyed this film, and it's my favorite revenge film of this year. Why is it on my worst list? I needed to fill this list. Number 4 is Cats. Let me just say that, yes, the CGI does not look that good. That's breaking it gently. But at least the CGI was somewhat consistent enough. I mean, I was distracted enough by the faces that I didn't really notice that much when it came to the hands and feet and all that. But the choreography I felt was good enough. But apparently now I'm getting reports that it doesn't match. They totally changed up the original choreography for the original Cats musical. I've never seen the original Cats musical, so this is my first time ever seeing anything Cats related. I will say the music was good enough. I kind of liked a few moments throughout the film. It's still a bad film, and it has every right to be on the worst list. I just feel it's not a 2.7, 2.6, or 2.8, whatever it's at right now. It keeps bouncing back and forth for International Movie Database. I feel, at the very least, Cats is deserving of a 4 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10, somewhere around there. I think people are hating on the film a little too much, but I can see why they're hating on it. I really hope they release a version of the film where it's just without any of the CGI special effects, so I can just see what the base film looks like and what they did. Like, what was green screen, what was not. Like, that's what I want to see. Release the unfinished cut, Cats. Anyways, enough of a rant about that. Number 3 is Ad Astra. Only reason this is lower than Cats is Ad Astra is... I just felt it was more bland. See, I would rather have a bad movie that stands out than a movie that's really bland. Ad Astra was so bland, and even though it was original, I guess, I don't know if it was based on anything. I think it was original. It's an original low-budget movie that came out of nowhere with great cast, and it just... I don't know. I was still, like, even in my review, immediately after watching the film, I was really mixed on the film. Though it was beautifully well done in the terms of special effects and all that, and I really loved the lake on Mars scene, underwater scene, but I just don't know. There's something about this film that I had to put on number 3. I'm sorry, okay? Brad Pitt gave a good performance in it, okay? Maybe it should be number 4. Fuck. Number 2 is Terminator Dark Fate. I like Terminator Dark Fate, but why did we really have to do this again? I mean, interesting sort of, I felt, twist in the beginning part, because I wasn't expecting that, but I kind of feel like this movie, like, if you love the second movie for Terminator, there's a pretty high chance you're going to hate this movie just because of that opening first 5-10 minutes of the movie. But, like, I still enjoyed Terminator Dark Fate, but I just felt it was... And I thought the action scenes were pretty cool as over the top, and just, I don't know, I felt like I actually enjoyed Terminator Genesis more than I enjoyed Terminator Dark Fate, and I don't know why. I have to rewatch it, but from what I saw in theaters, and I thought it was a very interesting, the plot they went with, but, like, why? Why did they go with this? I'm at this point in the Terminator franchise, I'm like, why didn't you guys just continue with Christian Bale's Terminator Salvation? Like, why can't we, finish this, actually have the humans or win or lose, and then, that's the end, Why can't we just do that? There's only one movie that I felt absolutely deserves to be on the worst movie that I saw that was released in 2019. And it's The Dark Phoenix. As much as it hates me to say it, I love the idea of the X-Men franchise and all that. Their movies have always been good, decent, or bad, and this is the worst. This is lower than bad. What a waste of star power and talent. Like, X-Men Apocalypse was okay, but I still feel like they're kind of doing a misstep. And after such a great reset button, which was the Dark Knight, Days of Future Past, after doing such a great reset button, they did nothing with it afterwards, basically, with X-Men Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. So they had to reshoot this movie, the whole ending, just because it was too similar to another superhero movie that came out earlier this year, and I'm pretty sure it's Captain Marvel to blame for that. But even then, I actually thought the reshoot with the train was actually a little more interesting, but it still wasn't enough to save the film at all. 100% deserves to be the worst film of the year, in my opinion. That was released in 2019. Time for honorable mention for worst. You ready for this? Oh yeah. There is none for honorable mention for worst movie that was released in 2019. Here are the honorable mentions for best movie that came out in 2019 that I saw for the first time. Glass, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Parasite, Shazam! Here we go, the list everyone came to see. 10 best films or movies that I saw in 2019 for the first time that was released in 2019. Number 10, Avengers Endgame. Though nowhere near as amazing as Infinity War. Avengers Endgame was still a nice sort of ending to the 10 or 11 or how many years of Marvel Cinematic Universe films that we've gotten. This was a nice little way to sort of end it, even though technically Spider-Man Far From Home is the official ending of that phase. Number 9, I decided to give to Ford v Ferrari because that was a great racing movie. And it was also a great based on a true story movie at the same time. It just reminded me again why I love racing films in general. Best racing based on a true story movie since Rush. Number 8 is Rocket Man, burning out the leaves of Avalon. Rocket Man was a pretty damn good biopic musical movie. Any inaccuracies with the movie I felt worked because of the way they structured the story, and it's all told through Elton John being in rehab with. So you're kind of, what he's saying is like he could be flourishing some things, he could be, and it's represented well through the musical numbers and just how over the top and just sort of almost magical, I guess you could say. Number 7 is Spider-Man Far From Home. Main reason this is on the list is Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio performance and what Marvel ended up doing with the second half of the film. Really well done. First half of the film was a decent, almost family vacation in Europe type situation, type movie, and I thought it was just good enough, but that whole second half of the film just kind of cemented this movie in its place. And plus, not only did you get one important end credit scene, you got 2 major important end credit scenes, which is awesome. Number 6 is Us. Jordan Peele's follow-up to Get Out is this amazingly original piece of horror work. Loved every minute of it. Number 5 is John Wick 3, which I thought was, the first 20 minutes of the movie paid for its ticket. I felt. So at that point it didn't matter what happened for the rest of the film, and the rest of the film was pretty damn good. And even though there's, I think, one part near the end where I felt like they kind of jumped the shark a bit, one specific shot, I didn't care. I enjoyed it, and it was awesome. Number 4 is Knives Out. I think this is the closest we're ever going to get to a really good Clue type movie. Really well done, murder mystery, and loved the film from beginning to end. And I don't want to spoil anything. Great cast. It's just check it out if you haven't checked it out and you like murder mystery type movies. Very comedic, but also very serious as well. There's a specific monologue with Daniel Craig in the movie, which I just loved. I mean, we need more movies where Daniel Craig has that accent. Oh, man. Number 3 is Dr. Sleep. I had not low expectations. I would be lying if I said I went in with low expectations, because, The Shining is amazing. It's amazing horror classic, and it's like you're doing the sequel to it 30, 40 years from now. Granted, Stephen King didn't write the sequel to The Shining until like 2012, 2013, whatever. It was this decade that he wrote the sequel to the sequel to The Shining. So now that they actually did the movie, the fact that we actually got both Stephen King's approval and Stanley Kubrick's estate approval to sort of merge the two movies together to, it's still Stephen King, but it's still has a lot of callbacks and a lot of stuff related to the original movie, just because that original The Shining movie was such a big impact that if they didn't get Stanley Kubrick's estate to agree to it and they did it their own way, a lot of people probably wouldn't have went to see the movie, because it's like they would have had to change so much. But I just can't believe that we were able to put the two together and have them both agree on this final product of a movie. And I love that even after I saw it in theaters and it was an amazing experience, that now the Blu-ray's gonna get, and it's been confirmed, official director's cut of a film, which adds or has some alternate takes, an extra 30 minutes of footage, and I am super excited to check that out. Number 2 of the best movies I've ever seen in 2019 that were released in 2019. Number 2, I had to give it to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm biased towards, time travel, meta films, and films about filmmaking. And boy, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is an absolute treat. Quentin Tarantino does a almost slice of life type film where it's just sort of just them just casually going through life, doing their best in Hollywood. Rick Dalton and his stuntman Cliff Booth, and then you also got a major, if you know the historic history of that specific time and place, you kind of know where this movie's gonna go. This movie, in my opinion, is literally, if you've never seen a Quentin Tarantino film, this is the one to start off with, just because this movie gives you a little bit of everything. It is literally an appetizer that sort of, has a little bit of everything that Quentin Tarantino always does as a film and all that. And, see what you like, see what you dislike. And, in my opinion, that's what Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is. It is a lot of references, great acting, a lot of great moments that I love throughout this film. Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood deserves the number 2 spot. You may be wondering, what is Mitchell Ryan Darcy's number 1 best movie of 2019 in his opinion that was released in 2019? What could it be? Well, I had to go with The Lighthouse. Robert Pattinson, William Dafoe. One of the most disturbing movies of the year, and I loved almost every minute of it. It is. Oh man, what a film. Extremely well done. And the funny thing is, this movie kind of reminded me of the original The Shining. It's the movie that reminded me the most of that film. Isn't that funny? Dr. Sleep? See, Dr. Sleep did get the look down and the sound that it looked and sounded like a sequel to The Shining, but The Lighthouse felt like The Shining movie. There's hardly any other movies that I could even compare to when I first saw The Shining for the first time. That feeling of just what it created. And The Lighthouse was the closest I've ever felt to feeling that feeling of the first time I ever watched The Shining. And I love that the movie did that while still being its own thing. It has nothing to do with The Shining. It's not Stephen King. It's a totally different film. But it had that feeling, that dread, the suspense, dialogue, the monologues in it, the scenes, the acting. Oh my god, I'm gonna be so pissed off if this movie gets snubbed for the Oscars. Oh man, just because it's a horror, technically. An amazingly well done film, best of the year, not for everyone. That is a big stipulation. This movie is not for everyone. If Cannibal Holocaust didn't kill actual animals, The Lighthouse would have been the most disturbing movie I've seen this year. Extremely well done. I am super excited to see what this director does next. congratulations. The Lighthouse is the best movie I've seen this year. So, thank you very much for watching. I want you to have a nice day or night or whatever time you watch this. Have a nice whatever. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. Check out my other stuff. It's entirely up to you. No pressure. That one's decent.